All right. Good afternoon. I hope that everybody's excited to be here. I hope that your first couple classes are going the way you want them to go. But today we're going to start our world history course, and we're going to start learning about the Renaissance. It's a pretty good time period. And your bell work asks you, what do you think the term Renaissance means? So does anybody have a good guess? Samina? It was a fair. Yes. Do you remember me saying that, or are you just like that's your guess? Okay. Yes, it is a fair in Florence. Have you been to the Renaissance Fair? Okay. Well, they do a fair in Florence. That is the Renaissance Fair. Is it Savannah? Got it. Yes, art and chivalry. What else? Anybody else got a guess? Samina? Instead of rides, it had painting. So you're like thinking it's a real fair. Yes, but no. Focus on what? Religion in some ways, yeah. They kept their religion, but it's going to be a little different. Those are good guesses. And if you were, like I said, oh, you got one? Oh, no? I didn't know you should raise your hand. You was doing a little dance? No? Okay. Anyways, the Renaissance is a little different time period. And like I said, nothing wrong with thinking it's a fair. I polled all my family members, and they literally like, are you talking about that thing that happens down in Florence? And I was like, no. Like, no, the thing you learned about in the 1300s. And they're like, oh, no, I don't know nothing about that. So I get it. And for you all, there's a little bit of a problem in the sense that Mr. Kilpatrick didn't get to finish the year out with you. You would have actually talked about a lot of this. And so a lot of our buildup, a lot of our causes, you don't know. But we'll get to know some of them today as we study this unit. As we study history, so as we study this year, you have to remember that history works in a linear format, meaning that everything goes in a straight line or happens in order. So in history, something happens that causes the next thing to happen, and the next thing to happen, and the next, and the next. Everything that happens was caused by something that happened previously. That's what history is. So, as you look at the painting on the wall, does anybody know where this painting's from? Italy? Is that what you said? Yeah, it is from Italy, yeah. But where? Greece? Greece and Italy are two different places. What? Paris is in France? All right, we're going to stop with the geography because I'm going to feel bad in a minute. So this is in the Sistine Chapel. It's done by Michelangelo. He did the painting on the roof. We'll talk about him tomorrow. But notice something about almost every figure in this painting. What are they, Tanner? No, but you know. You already said it. What is wrong with it, or what is noticeable about every person? They're naked, and it says it. That's Adam saying, hey, I'm naked. He knows it, right? That's a common theme throughout art in the Renaissance. And you'll see why in just a little bit. But we don't really know what the Renaissance is. And if you don't have your Chromebook out, I'm sorry I forgot to do this part. You need to go to Schoology. So if you go to Schoology, and you click on your course, so everybody will need to do this. So if you have your Chromebook out, you're good. If you don't have your Chromebook out, then you need to have your Chromebook out. Andrew Vines, that'd be you. You just made national news on the stream here. And go to weekly units. And you click weekly units. You'll go to week 1, August 31st through September 4th. You'll click there. You'll click Renaissance and Reformation. That's what we're studying. And you'll click on August 31st. Inside there, it says use the link provided to access the graphic organizer for the Renaissance notes. Watch the video and copy the notes from the PowerPoint. You don't have to watch the video. You just have to listen to that. But you'll click it. I'm not opening it up. It'll ask you to make a copy. The copy looks like this. It says the Renaissance. Real cool. Okay? You can type in it and type in all your notes right there. We'll make it to right there today. Okay? Any questions? Nope. All right. So back to what we were going to learn in here. Was everybody able to make a copy? Everybody good? Everybody's got a copy of it? Andrew, you good? I'm about to get going, so it don't go slow in here. I don't do well with time management because I'm going to use all 50 minutes. Not just this, but everybody's good. All right, here we go. So, Renaissance. We don't know what it means. We think it's a festival or a fair. Savannah had a good idea that it's about art. It is. But what is it exactly? And it is a rebirth. Renaissance, the term means rebirth. But what were they being reborn from? What were they? And you only have to write down what's in red. So only type what's in red. Almost didn't get that. Only type what's in red. That's for them. You got to get in there. But Renaissance means rebirth. But what was it a rebirth from? What can y'all tell me about the plague? It's not the coronavirus. The Black Plague. What's the difference? Huh? Mosquitoes. No. It is from rats. Yeah, rats carry it. Fleas get on rats. Fleas jump off rats onto people. They bite people. People die. The plague was the bubonic plague, and it was called the Black Death. Happened during the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages. Why was that called that? 60% of Europe's population died. 60. So from Jaden over, everybody on this side dies. They all live. That's a hefty margin there. Because of all that death, there needed to be a rebirth. And there was. It was a rebirth of art, literature, and thought. That is the Renaissance. A rebirth of art, literature, and thought. It lasted from about the 1300s to the 1600s. This is not one event like World War I. This was a time period. And during that time period, a lot of different things took place. But the main thing that we're going to study from it is how it changed thought, literature, art, people. See, because of the Black Death, yes, ma'am. We're going to get to it in just a second. Because people died so much, they began to lose faith in the church. Because the church is all about what? God, salvation, right? Well, when 60% of the population dies, you start to question God and salvation. They didn't forget about Him. They didn't lose their religion. They just start to think, maybe we're here for a different purpose than just religion. So they began to focus on more human things, which is what secular means. Secular means to move away from life in the church. And that's what happens during the Renaissance. They moved away from life in the church. We're going to see that this break from the church, this losing faith in the church. And when we say the church, we mean the Catholic Church. They lose faith in it because of all the death. Y'all didn't get to study the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages. That's something you missed out on. You didn't get to study the Black Death. That's what Coach Kilpatrick or Mr. Kilpatrick would have studied with you last year. And so with that, you're kind of a little behind in terms of knowing where we're coming from. But again, Middle Ages, Dark Ages, Black Death, all lead up to the Renaissance. Secular focus is more on material objects and enjoying life. Do y'all know anybody that focus on material objects and enjoying life? Do we say that we're going through a Renaissance now? No, we call it YOLO. Right? That's what we do. Y'all may have a new term for it. I'm kind of old, so I don't know if y'all move past YOLO. Is there a new term? Send it? I don't know. But we do this, right? Our lives are not just focused on religion, are they? If you do go to church, you probably only go to church 3 days a week. Or sorry, 3 days, 2 days a week, sorry. Right? Sunday and Wednesday. So most of your life is not in the church, it's outside of it. I'm not saying you're not religious. But you probably focus more on material objects and enjoying life. So this time frame, this change in thought still is prevalent today. We still feel it, we still see it today. But that's what the Renaissance is, and some of the ideas of it are what kind of caused it. But that's not the only cause. Is anybody still typing? Good? You sure? The Crusades also took place during this time. Does anybody have any knowledge on the Crusades at all? Emma has knowledge on it? I doubt it. You know what the Crusades are? You know what the Crusades are? Now, last year, again, you would have studied the Crusades. It's okay if you didn't, again, because of the virus. But the Crusades were holy wars fought between the Muslims and the Christians over the Holy Land. Does anybody know where the Holy Land is? What was that very religious group that y'all studied last year with Mr. Kilpatrick? Israel, that's the Holy Land. Jerusalem. That area is the Holy Land, and they fought wars there. And that has nothing to do with the actual thing that influences the Renaissance. The fact is that when people travel to foreign places, like Lance did you bring back anything with you to your house? But if you did, what would you call that? Starts with an S. Someone else said it. Souvenir, right? You bring back souvenirs with you. That's what these people did. As they went and traveled and fought in these holy wars in the Middle East, they brought back their products. And people said, hey, we like those things. And when people started really liking those things and those items that they had from the Middle East, what did other people want to do? Go get it. Or even better, what do you do if you want to buy something? You go to somewhere that's got it, right? And then what do you do if you want to buy it? You pay for it. And in their age, it was called trading. They didn't have as much paying for things. They traded with each other. But it led to the development, because people always didn't have the ability to trade, of banking. Because when you want something, you got to use your banking. You got to have money in the bank to actually buy it. And so people started banking more, using credit. Hey, I don't have enough money to buy this. Well, I'll loan you the money. And so these people started these banking organizations, one being the Knights Templar, but many other ones happened as well. And they happened in just a couple places on the Italian peninsula. That's why we call the beginning of the Renaissance the Italian Renaissance, because it began in Italy. But it came about due to trade from the Middle East caused by the Renaissance, the Black Death causing people to die and them wanting a rebirth of the life they had had before that time. So we kind of know what the Renaissance was and why it kind of began to take place, but where did it take place? Well, where was the Italian city-states? And those Italian city-states were Milan, Venice, they come up way too slow, Florence, and Genoa. All these places were trade routes or stops along trade routes from the Middle East. Ships would sail the Adriatic Sea back across into Italy. These city-states were ran by wealthy banking families and church leaders. They would trade their Middle Eastern products there, and they became very, very wealthy. Also, one of the greatest civilizations of almost all time was headquartered in Italy. You actually did study this last year. At one point in time, they were led by Julius Caesar. What was probably the greatest civilization you've ever studied besides us? Yeah, Rome, the Romans. And so there was all these Roman ruins, and people saw them, right? And they're like, hey, remember how great Rome was? You remember the Colosseum, and you remember how they had all these things, and they got the aqueducts, and it's always amazing stuff. We still do it today, right? We still travel over there, and we're like, oh, this stuff's so cool. Well, they did it too, and they like it. You don't like it? You don't like the past? Man, it's okay. But anyways, most people do. And they look at it and they go, man, it was so great back then. Let's go back then. You do think about that sometimes, though, don't you? You go, oh, man, it used to be so good. I remember life before mask, right? Life was so good back then. I could go to the beach and I didn't need a tan line on my face. Anybody got a tan line on their face yet? No? Y'all need to wake up. Anyways, regardless, people saw those Roman ruins and they thought back to their lives, or maybe not their lives, but their past glory, and they wanted to return to that past glory. Wealthy banking families like the Medici in Florence helped spur this movement in the Italian city-states, this Italian Renaissance, by creating organizations for trade and credit. And they grew their businesses that way. And then they did something with their money by developing education, sponsoring art, which would make them something called a patron, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And then because of the Black Death, there was less people around. And if me and Tanner are sitting at the table eating, there's probably plenty of food. But if we let the rest of the class eat, there's less food for me and Tanner, right? Well, that wasn't a problem during this time because smaller population due to the Black Death led to more resources for everybody else. So they had more stuff, so their lives were just better overall. They weren't hungry because of a shortage of food because there was plenty of food because there were less people. We have that issue nowadays. We've got a lot of people in this world, and there's hungry people all the time. They didn't have that issue. After 60% of the population dies, you don't have that problem anymore. So that's why the Renaissance began in Italy, and that's where we kind of see its jumping off point. It won't be the last part, but we do call it the Italian Renaissance in the beginning because then it happens somewhere else. And they have their own little Renaissance, and we call it the Northern Renaissance. So we know what the Renaissance was, why it took place, and where it began, and why it began there. So let's kind of dive into what it was all about. Patrons, that's what drove the Renaissance. You actually do want to write that one down. I'm sorry it's not in red. But patrons were wealthy people and church leaders who sponsored art. If I told Tanner, and I'm picking on Tanner, but if I told Tanner to drop down and do 100 push-ups, how motivated are you to do those push-ups? Not very, right? But if I told Tanner that he's going to get $1 for each push-up he does, are you going to be motivated then to do push-ups? What about if I give you $100 per push-up, right? The more money, more motivation. Well, the reason why art flourishes during this time is because people start paying for it. There's a reason why art is looked at as dead nowadays, because do we spend money on art? I don't have any paintings in my house. You know what I spent money on? Pictures. That's the art that I have, is people like took pictures of me and I didn't pay for them, but my wife did. You know, that's what we spend money on. So these people, these patrons spent money on art. That's why it flourished this time. That's why it's like a golden age of art, because people started spending money on it. Italians had a lot of money. What did they have a lot of money from? What was going on in those Italian city-states? They weren't selling art, not yet. They were those wealthy banking families, and what were they doing? Trading. They had made a ton of money through trade. And so they started spending on art. Why would they spend it on art? What did art signify to the rest of the world? What does money to signify to the rest of the world today? Well, yeah, it's currency, but like if you have a lot of it, what do you got also? You have wealth, yeah. Power. More art equaled higher social and political status. You were looked at as a more powerful person the more art you had, because that meant you were wealthy. It meant you had a lot of money. And you meant you were very well cultured throughout the world. So people started spending money and they started hiring artists to make things and to paint things and to build stuff. And it happened all over the Italian peninsula. That's why like you see people want to go to Italy and see all the architecture and see the paintings and see the statues. They paid for it. Do we not do stuff like that today? What do we pay to see nowadays? Movies. Like, none of y'all bought art, right? But how many of you bought a song on iTunes or Spotify or paid for a subscription, right? Yeah, that's what we spend our money on now. We do that. We pay artists just music. That's how we do this. We do the same thing. Patrons could be somebody like Bill Gates. We call them philanthropists now that give their money to different projects. These guys would have been doing it to show off. Does she? Like real art? I'm not into art. And you would peddle it off for like $1? Nice. I mean, some people like art. There's still a market for it, but we spend our money differently. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Some of the thoughts that changed, we talked about its rebirth of art, literature, and culture, and art, literature, and thought. Some of the thoughts were political ideas. One of the most unique political philosophers during this time was a guy by the name of Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli was an Italian political philosopher who wrote the book called The Prince in 1532. What do you think The Prince is about? Anybody? What do you think The Prince is about, this book he wrote? Art? Close. No, not at all. But it's a good guess. You saw that picture before? Yeah, Machiavelli is an interesting subject. The Prince is about how to govern and how to gain and keep power as a king. It's teaching the prince how to gain and keep power. But Machiavelli is kind of different. Talk about having doubts about the world. Machiavelli definitely did. He believed, and you can tell me what he thinks about people after hearing this, he believed that one could make this generalization about men. They are ungrateful, fickle, liars and deceivers. They shun danger and are greedy for profit. What does he think about people? He don't like them. He thinks they're liars. I can't say that I don't disagree. You know, he believed that people would connive, steal, lie, run away from danger, just want to make money. Pretty good analysis there in 1532. You know, Machiavelli had some really good ideas in terms of politics. But some of his ideas are still relevant today, and we'll talk about those a little bit more. A ruler should be willing to do anything to maintain control without worrying about conscience. What's your conscience? Your what? Guilt, in a way, yeah. It's like your moral beliefs. Like you wouldn't do something because your conscience says it's wrong. Okay? Well, he says that a ruler should be able to do anything, should be willing to do anything to maintain control and shouldn't worry about the repercussions of it, the conscience. Like you can't have a conscience when you're a ruler. And it kind of goes along with how he sees the world. I would say I'm somewhat Machiavellian, but not completely. Some of you are completely Machiavellian, and you'll find that out tomorrow. Some of you are not at all. Some of the ideas that he had, and just write down one or two of these. You don't have to write down all of them. That's what it says right there. It is better for a ruler to be feared than to be loved. Better for a ruler to be feared rather than to be loved. Meaning that it's better as a ruler to have people be scared of you than to like you. It'd be like me wanting you to fear me as a teacher rather than like me as a teacher. Now, this is one I don't agree with. If you're scared of me, then you would not like this class because you'd be scared. You would do your work, but you would only do it because you're afraid that I'm going to yell at you. I want you to do your work because you want to do your work. But this is how he believed. Do we have anybody that you can think of in terms of leadership, ruling, that kind of goes by this motto, it's better to be feared than to be loved in this world? Hitler would have definitely been that way. He was actually well liked, though. Just saying. Thinking a more modern day example. about North Korea? Kim Jong-un? He's probably feared more than he's loved, but he runs his country. President Trump's probably a little bit in between. Is he feared? I think people definitely fear President Trump. But in the South, is he loved? Yeah. So this idea is still prevalent today. A ruler should be quick and decisive. Again, he had some just general knowledge stuff that we would not think of as important, but maybe that they didn't. And so he thought, leaders need to be decisive in decision making. A ruler keeps power by any means necessary. By any means necessary means that you can do what? Anything. Steal, lie, cheat, murder, doesn't matter, as long as you keep power. And that's where the next one ties in. The ends justify the means. Anybody got an analysis of what they think that means? The ends justify the means. You can break it down in this way. If you wanted to make a 100 in this class and you had to cheat to do it, the end, if you made a 100, justified what you had to do to get there. So if you wanted to make a 100 and you had to cheat to do it, the end justifies the means. I'm not telling you to cheat, but a breakdown of it is very simple there. So if you wanted to get stronger and you took steroids and you got stronger, the end justifies the means. Do what? Not if you take steroids. What? Well, you still got to work out to get strong. The steroids only help you recover. That's a misconception. But regardless, I know what you're saying. But the end justifies the means. If the guy got stronger because he took steroids, that's how Machiavelli felt. That if you wanted to get rich and you had to backstab somebody along the way, ends justify the means if you got rich. It's Machiavelli. Be good when possible and evil when necessary. That's what kind of throws us for a loop. Because down in the South, we've been taught, be good all the time. Be good. With all these churches all around us, that's all we've been preached to. But he says be good when possible, but evil when you need it. So if you need to backstab or if you need to, it's all right. That's the way he felt. Machiavelli would influence many rulers. His political ideals would be used even till modern day times. Some people still feel that these things are relevant today. Another political thought or philosophy or thought that was reborn during this time. And remember, rebirth means that they're not creating new ideas. They're taking old ideas and revamping them, making them better. Francesco Petrarch, he's at the bottom of your paper. I say bottom. He's not at the very bottom. He's like halfway through it. 1304 to 1374, and I don't really care about dates too much. It's not my thing. I think on your paper it just says Petrarch. I care more about what they did. And he was the father of humanism. And yes, he looks like he's wearing a tree. Unique, I know. Scroll down. Found it? Yeah. He was the father of humanism. He also wrote love poems in the vernacular or native languages. So for us, he would have wrote love poems in what language? English. But for them, it would have been in Italian. This spreads language throughout the area. People were able to read it a little bit better, become more intelligent, and it would lead to the spreading of news and information even more so. Vernacular would have many purposes past this time. Anybody want to take a guess at what humanism means? No? Humanism is probably one of the most prevailing thoughts from the Renaissance. Is anybody still typing? I'm sorry. What do you think it's at least going to be about? Humans, there you go. Yeah, you own it. It's going to be about humans, and it's going to have a lasting impact, and you'll see why in just a minute. You good, Lance? Humanism celebrated the individual. It celebrates human potential and achievement and celebrates the individual. So this thought, this idea, humanism, is all about what we do here, how we do things. What are some ways that we do this today? What? Birthdays, we celebrate ourselves, right? I mean, we're like, yay, I turned 29, yay, I didn't die. That's what we celebrate. That's an achievement to us, apparently. What else? How else do we celebrate human potential, achievement, those things? Maybe not even just celebrate. How do we recognize it? We don't have to have a party about it, but trophies. What? Nothing. We give out trophies. Do we celebrate graduations? Graduations. One of the ways we do this is on your phones. It's an app. Most of you probably looked at it multiple times today. Well, yes, but probably not Facebook. Yeah, Instagram. Literally on Instagram, what is the goal? To get the most likes. We want people to celebrate what we did. I went to the beach. You gotta pose like this or sit up on a railing, right? Or something like that. Emma's like, crap, he got me. I'm just kidding. But seriously, that's what we do. We're all about this. We are all about celebrating the individual. That's what we do all of the time. We want to get that like or get that, we do this all the time. For them, it led to the study of Greek and Roman literature and culture. Because they were there, they studied those things a little bit more. They dug a little bit deeper into those things. And humanists study history because history is the study of who? Us, humans, people, the past events that people did. We don't, we do study animals, but they don't have history. They didn't rise up in civilizations that we study. Literature, the study of how things were written. We study literature because we wrote it. And philosophy, we study that because we created them. So you are a humanist. You are. You practice humanism all the time, right? You celebrate things that you did. Yeah, I mean, I think so. So humanism is a prevailing thought during this time. One of the major changes. They don't focus on religion. They focus on the individual. Is everybody good? You good? The last thought we're going to talk about today is the changes in art. We've talked about political thought. We've talked about philosophy. We'll talk about literature a little bit later. But we're going to talk about medieval art and the difference between it and the Renaissance art. Medieval art focused on the church and salvation. Focused on Jesus over here with a halo, God, the devil, those kind of images were focused on. The difference is that the Renaissance art focused on people, individuals, worldly matters, along with Christianity. It wasn't like they forgot religion. They just focused on it a little bit less. Focused more on how we do things here. And so, as their focus changed, so did the art. The art became about people during this time. One of the most famous paintings of all time is of a person that none of us even know. Mona Lisa. I know y'all have heard of the Mona Lisa, and we'll look at it tomorrow. But it's of a person. It's not of God. It's not of Jesus. It's not even of a religious figure. She was just a woman. But it's the painting and the art of the painting that makes it so relevant. So there's a big shift between church and salvation to worldly matters. You can see in medieval times they were looking upward, and in the Renaissance they were looking downward towards themselves. Is anybody still typing? Like I said, we'll finish there today, and this is not for y'all. If you have any questions about the lecture, if there's anything that needs to be explained a little bit more, you feel free to email me. Next thing we'll do is we'll go over the instructions for finishing your assignment for the day, August 31st. Those of you that are in class, you can go back to Schoology once you finish your notes and go back to August 31st, and I'll show you that on the screen in just a second. Andrew, you good? So you go back to Schoology, and here on August 31st, it says use the second link to access the Renaissance Illustrative Vocabulary. In this assignment, you will research various terms. I'm not perfect, so I spelled that wrong. From the Renaissance. You will need to define them in your own words. That means you cannot copy and paste. No copy and pasting. Write them in your own words, and we'll talk about that in just a second. That means do not plagiarize. It means we'll paraphrase things and make them seem like what we read. Seem like what we read. Then you will find an image that represents what the word means within the Renaissance. So if you click this, it'll ask you to make a copy. That's what you want to do. I'm not going to make a copy. I'm just going to open this one that I already have open. Okay? So directions say the same thing here. Research each vocabulary term below and type your own definition in the second column. Then find the image that best symbolizes it into the third column. If you need to make it bigger, you can zoom it in like that. By clicking this arrow, drop down, make it 100%. And when you research, I already got it open. If you just research patron, which most of you probably know what a patron is now, but if you just researched it, it comes up as patron. That is not what we're studying. So you have to do a little bit better research. Renaissance. And then you will get Lorenzo de Medici. You will get some other guys, what it is. And you may have to search, what is a patron all about? What did a patron do? Nobody can remember. A patron spent money on art. So to best symbolize this, and a person that spends money, you could put person spending money. You could literally put this guy because he was spending money on art. You can put something like that. Anything that symbolizes what you're doing could be used as the image. It's you making a connection with the term other than you just writing one down on something. Okay? So again, you go here and you do that, and then you file, download as a PDF, and that's how you turn it in. You would copy that, make a copy of it, and then submit it back on Schoology. Any questions? Again, if there are any questions at all at home, make sure you email me, and otherwise, have a great day.